when the world has got you down. And
Alzheimer's sucks. It's an equal opportunity disease that chips away at everything we hold dear. And to date, there's no cure. So until there is, we continue to fight with the most powerful tool in our arsenal, love. This is Love Conquers Alls, a real and really positive podcast that takes a deep dive into everything Alzheimer's, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And now, here are your hosts, Susie Singer-Carter and me, Don Priest.
Hello, everybody. I'm Susie Singer-Carter.
And I'm Don Priest, and this is Love Conquers Alls. Hello, Susie.
Hello, Donald. How art thou? I'm good.
I'm great.
I'm good and bad because I'm awesome because I got my first vaccination yesterday.
Me
and
too.
So did you.
Yes. And my arm's feeling it a little bit.
My arm is so sore. And I asked them, I said, I'm left-handed. Should I get it in my right arm? They're like, no worries. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm the biggest wuss in the world, but it hurts so bad. It's so sore.
You get it in the other. You get it the other arm always.
Yeah.
Always.
No, it's so painful. And then I had aches and pains in my back, and I don't even know if that was part of it, but it just felt
probably
weird. But I'm also so elated because I'm halfway to seeing my mom now.
Yes.
One more shot, and then I can go and get into the place and actually snuggle with her. I cannot wait.
Yeah.
So I have to wait a couple more weeks. Yeah. So this is good. I'm so excited. How are you feeling? Did you have any symptoms?
I didn't have any symptoms. I was feeling a little tired, you
always feel tired,
night,
though.
But I feel tired anyway, so I couldn't tell the difference. And my arm's sore, but it's actually better today than it was last night. So I'm good.
Wow. You're like a warrior.
I'm thrilled.
You're like a COVID warrior.
Oh, yeah. I'm super tough.
You are. We have our guest is super tough and a warrior. She's a super warrior. Did you read all that cool stuff about her?
There's so much, and I just want to. I think we just need to get to her because she has so much to say.
No, she has too much to say, like so much to say, and I just want to pick her brain. And we're so on the same wavelength, and she knows everybody that's in this community. I'm not even kidding you. She's the greatest resource in the world, and I'm already I already want to be her BFF because she knows everything about this. She's so awesome, isn't she?
Indeed. She
Okay,
is, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her.
Tell everybody about her.
Well, first of all, her name is Judy Cornish, and she's a renowned author, attorney, and member of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. Before becoming a lawyer, Judy worked in vocational rehabilitation with people who have brain injuries and as a qualified mental health associate with the mentally ill. So with her background in traumatic brain injury, mental illness, elder law, and disability law, she brings a distinctive set of abilities to her work with dementia and Alzheimer's. In 2010, she founded the Dementia and Alzheimer's Wellbeing Network, or DAWN, and is the creator of the DAWN method, which is, among other things, what we are going to talk about today. And that said, let's welcome Judy Cornish.
Hello. Okay, and I have to say, please don't call me an expert because I'm one of those people who's had so much experience that it's hard to be an expert in anything. But, because I worked one spring, I was able to work with sheep. And I have to tell you, I learned more about dementia from working with sheep or, horses and children, as you and I were talking about before.
Yes.
So, yeah,
children are
don't
great.
Call me an expert.
Well, okay, she's not she's
she's a good knower.
I'm a dabbler.
She knows things. A lot of things. Things and
Many
stuff.
unrelated things.
Give us the Reader's Digest version of Dawn method. And then we'll dive into it. But I want to just give us the main, the concepts of it, the conceit of it.
Okay, so the DAWN method is a set of tools, and it's based on the strengths of dementia. So there's two premises that I learned when I just dropped everything and started spending all my time with people who were experiencing dementia. That the first truth is we lose skills, but we do not lose all our skills, just some of them. So there are strengths, and you can work with it. And secondly, when we talk about the symptoms of dementia, it's not strange, inexplicable behaviors that have no reason or logic. They are totally understandable if you understand the second rule, and that is there are very specific emotional needs when we lose skills. And that's really all that's happening. Once you understand what is lost and what is kept, and once you understand that anybody who is experiencing dementia is just us, it's just us when we find ourselves unable to experience or use a tool that we're really used to. So, to me, there's no need for stigma. In fact, I didn't even understand there was stigma at first because, to me, it was just, this is my elders, and these are wonderful people, and they are so full of wisdom and knowledge and
But see, you're
experiences and
you're very
talents.
that's a
And
unique that's a very unique perspective for in that I
it
find
is.
most people don't have it, and most people have to learn it. I had to learn it. What brought you to the Dawn method? How did you get there?
You,
What tell us about that.
well, I had been practicing law in Portland, Oregon, and I ended up in law school. That's a long story, but it wasn't really, law was never my goal. I had never wished to be an attorney. And um, ending up in law school, when I did go, I took disability law, elder law, wills and trusts, family law, anything I could take that would be law related to the person. And it was because prior to going, I'd worked for a year as a psychosocial skills trainer with the mentally ill. And that was a $10 an hour job. And I took it so that I wouldn't have to leave a small town in Oregon so that my son could graduate in the same high school. But
Wow.
what I discovered, um, so I was working in a lockdown facility with 25 beds. And I think there were about 23 residents, and you had to be criminally mentally ill in Oregon to actually warrant one of these beds. Now, these people had, there were 5 psychosocial skills trainers, 2 aides in the daytime, I think 1 aide overnight, access to a full time nurse, and a psychologist on call for these 23 people. Mentally ill was the diagnosis. Same building, other side of the door is a 97-bed Alzheimer's unit being run by one of America's long-term facility corporations. 97 beds, 2 aides, a nurse. And guess what? They didn't get psychologists or psychosocial skills trainers. They got bed restraints, wheelchair restraints, and psychotropic drugs. 1999 in Oregon. And when I discovered my scholarship would only allow me to go to Portland, Oregon for a graduate degree, and then by default, it turned out that was going to be law. And I found myself going to law school. I knew one thing. I wanted to learn everything there was about American law and how it affected the elders, because what I saw I could not live with.
Yep. Yep.
Fast
I mean, it was
forward
basically
that.
that was a
I'm a
morgue.
test-
Basically,
It was a morgue, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
It was
tell this.
horrible. It was a
You know
torture
what?
chamber.
It's torture. When my mother ended up incontinent because by accident on the way to a
Right.
doctor's appointment, they from her facility, when they were like checking her in, they misdiagnosed her without not Alzheimer's but a mental breakdown and put her in lockup. And I couldn't
Right.
get her out for 7 days. And she had been walking 5 miles. She was like in the best shape she'd ever been in. And when I went to finally get to visit her after 3 days, she was tethered to a chair and was on Depakote, which is like,
Oh no. Oh,
oh
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and which is in case I've mentioned it before, but it's a drug that I later found out is it's a black label drug, especially for people with dementia.
Right.
It could kill them, and it turned my mom into just a blah, zombie, and she never
She hasn't
recovered from
walked
it.
since.
She hasn't
Yeah,
walked
she
since
hasn't
and
walked
became
since.
incontinent from it.
I have had people, my clients, as you may have noticed or know about me, the Dawn Method, I am devoted to helping families understand how to provide dementia care so that people can live as long as possible in their own homes.
in the best
with
quality.
family in the home, best quality life possible. And it's really difficult to age in place in America with the way our system is set up. And the prevalence and the acceptance of that, I mean, I don't know how many times I'm working with a family, and within 20 minutes of the initial geriatric care consultation, somebody will say, yeah, but, she's old. She belongs in an elder care facility.
Yeah.
Or, and to which I always feel like saying, okay, so you give birth to children, well, they belong in boarding schools, right?
Right,
The British showed us how well that works.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and send your children away to group living in institutions run by corporations.
Exactly.
And
Because
that's what
the
we
right
do to our elders.
100%. Yeah. Or they say things like family members up to me said, well, she's not going to remember anyway. What difference does it make?
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. Okay, so that's one of the first things I tried to explain and get people to understand is, if I am losing my memory skills, now let's keep in mind that natural aging, we become a little bit more forgetful.
Yeah.
It's not because we're losing skills, it's because our brains are so full of information and experiences and knowledge and wisdom that it takes a little longer to retrieve stuff. Right?
I love that. That's a great perspective. Instead of because I panic every time I can't think of something. I think, oh no. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're in your 20s, you haven't had too terribly many experiences. There's not a whole lot of knowledge there. And so picture a library, and there's lots of shelves. They're empty, they're ready and waiting, and your life is going to fill those shelves. And there's, every time you have a new experience, you get to file it and put it where it belongs. And every time you want to retrieve information, it's easy to see where it was and where it is. Easy to get to. And then you get into your 30s, and every once in a while, it takes a little longer because that library's getting full.
Yeah.
By the time you get to your 40s, every once in a while, you're going to be looking for a proper noun. Those words in English that we capitalize.
Yeah.
And then when you get into your 50s, every once in a while, you're looking for a noun.
Yeah.
And that's because as we age, we're like libraries. We're like Sherlock Holmes' attic. You got to be careful how much you put up there because it's getting crowded. And
you got to archive.
What shelf did I put that on? Yeah.
Right. And if you've not been getting a lot of sleep, there's a whole lot of stuff that isn't filed. It's just sitting there in piles.
Oh my God, that's so important.
While you sleep. Right.
That's so important because when you're stressed out, you don't sleep. And as caregivers, we do that. Yeah. And we think, especially for A types, like some people I know, and we just decide we can do it all. I can get by with 3 hours sleep. Guess what? You can't.
No, you can't. No. Yeah, we need our sleep. Yeah, I always try to, if I can possibly put a team of caregivers with people, and I like to separate my daytime caregivers from the overnight caregivers. But this idea that if she doesn't remember it, it doesn't matter. That's so cruel. Because dementia takes away not just memories, it takes away our memory skills. And when I lose that ability to retrieve knowledge from the past, what I've lost in Daniel Kahneman's terms, I've lost my remembering self. The part of me that can borrow information from the past. I've also lost that part of me that would be able to recognize that things are familiar. This is another whole topic. I want to go home. That's a topic. That's a different podcast. But think about what's happening. I'm losing my remembering self, but am I losing myself? And this is one of the most primary principles I teach. No, you are not. It is not like Italo Calvino says that we're just a collection of memories. We're not. We are experiential beings, and that's why it does us good to be mindful. That's why it does us good to meditate. That's why it is good to let children have lots of time to play and be bored and experience and be creative.
What does mindful mean, though?
Okay, so essentially to be mindful is to have attention skills at your disposal and to use them to choose whether to be in the past, the present, or the future. Okay, if you want to study mindfulness, the very first person you go to is Ellen Langer. And Ellen Langer shaped the way I chose to encounter dementia.
Got it.
She's Harvard retired. She was the first woman, I think, that they hired in their as a professor in the psychology department back in the 70s. Her little book Mindfulness came out in the 80s. She's known as the mother of mindfulness. So you begin with her little book,
Okay.
Mindfulness. That to be mindful is to be able to choose, to have attention skills and get to choose where to put them. And if you really want to be mindful, choose the present, because those of us who are experiencing dementia, we lose our remembering selves. We lose the ability to go to our memories, knowledge of the past, using our memory skills. And so we're stuck with no past. We're in the present. In addition, we lose rational thinking skills. And we can talk more about those in a minute. But the rational thinking skills give us the ability to anticipate, plan, and idealize, picture the future. So when I experience dementia, I am frozen in the present. But please understand that now that I am not distracted by the past or the future, I am 100% present. I am fully experiencing everything you do to me in the present. And so don't say it doesn't matter because she won't remember, because she might not be able to recall it. She might not be able to explain it. She might not be able to recount what just happened to her, but my goodness, it happened. She
It's
experienced
interesting.
it, and she's having an emotional reaction
Yep.
and will. And she's
Yeah.
learned it experientially, which is part of the intuitive thinking skills that we keep, and therefore she will never forget.
Yeah.
Well, it's
And
interesting
always-
that
yeah.
seems to be the higher. I'm listening to a new book by Russell Brand, who you either hate him or love him, but I think he's kind of brilliant. And he's talking about revelation and about the fact that that's what we should aspire to, is this sort of sacred self, which is basically the now, and but we get caught up in this I'm not going to say it as articulately as you did, but the future and the past. And so I think that when I look at my mother, she's like a baby in a way that it was so beautiful. And I don't mean that derogatorily. I mean it in a way that's so, it's beautiful because she is only right there and can only be right there as my granddaughter. She can only,
Right.
she as a baby, she can only be right there. That's all it is. It is
Right.
now.
Yep.
And it's
And what
right?
happens, it's not that your mother has become unintelligent.
Right.
Dementia does not take away our intelligence. It only takes away memory skills, rational thinking skills, and those are tools. And I know our culture. We live in a culture that is the product of 2,000 years of Western civilization. It's a culture that loves memory skills. Think about how you go through school. If you've got good memory skills, you're going to get stars from kindergarten to your PhD. You'll get gold stars.
So true.
If we, think about conversation, we get embarrassed if we tell somebody the same story twice. That's because our society prizes memory skills.
Right.
We get impatient if somebody in conversation repeats themselves. That's the society prizing memory skills again. Why would you prize one cognitive skill above all others? It's limiting. It doesn't make sense because we have more than just memory skills, and we are more than just this Calvino's catalog collection of memories. We are Brand's soul, that person, the self that never goes away. And, and it just breaks my heart when I hear people say, oh, I lost my dad to dementia, or I lost my mother to Alzheimer's. That's another talk, but you don't need to be lost. You just have to use the skills you still have that they have lost, and you use your skills on their behalf.
Yeah, we always say, that, and especially going back to when somebody says, "Oh, they're not going to remember." You can tell the difference when you go to visit, let's say, the difference between the people who have visitors and who do not, even though none of them remember, because we always say, yeah, you may not remember here, but you do remember here.
Yes.
And you do, they keep, and it does ingrain, and I think that's maybe even more important than remembering here.
Absolutely is. And when you point to your head, you're saying we remember here in our brains. Well, you're talking about rational thinking skills and memory skills. And when you point to your heart, you're talking about the experiential self and the intuitive thinking skills. And our intuitive thinking skills are the primary whole set. It's in Ian McGilchrist's terms, the intuitive thinking skills are the master. The rational thinking skills are just tools, just an emissary.
Yes, exactly. Which
Yeah.
brings me to a question, which for me is a little selfish, but it's, my mom's at that stage now where which is so frustrating, I know for her. She was articulating and being able to, form sentences before. Can you talk more about that when someone's lost their ability to articulate, and people could easily give up on their loved one because
Oh, yeah.
they're
But, picture it as you give birth, and here's this gorgeous little being, and you hold them, this little beautiful child in your arms, and you're looking them in the eye, and they look back at you, and their eyes open, and they smile. You're just thrilled. You say, come on, say my name. You know I'm mom. Come on, say mommy, mommy. Come
yeah,
on. Oh, I don't want this one. I can't. I've lost my infant because this infant can't speak English yet. That's not how we
right.
react. We as parents, we give birth, and then we begin to we love our infants, we love our children, and we watch as they grow. We watch them gain skills, and we
Hmm.
watch them develop emotionally and cognitively. Now, they're born 100% intelligent, it's all there, but they have to learn to speak our language.
Exactly.
But they do speak nonverbal communications. They read our nonverbal communications almost instantly, right? They're learning smiling. You can tell how the child feels, and the child knows how you feel by just looking in your eyes.
Yeah.
And then at the other end of life, and picture life as a bell curve. We begin in childhood, we live in adulthood, and then the other end of the bell curve is again elderhood.
Yeah.
3 stages of life,
Yeah.
and we end up in elderhood. But when somebody is losing rational thinking skills, they will lose acquired language. The
Hmm.
childhood language will go last. If they've spoken more than one language in their lifetimes, those learned more recently go first. But eventually they will lose the ability to use English language.
Hmm.
I'm not sure that they ever forget how to interpret it and understand what we are saying, because boy, I've watched people understand long past, years in, after losing their language. But here's what we get to do. So just like we support the child and work with the child's emotional condition, development, and cognitive abilities at each stage, and at each stage of the child's development, we continue to alter the environment to keep the
Hmm.
child safe and to maximize the child's
Right.
development.
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
now we're at the other end of life. Here's my mom, or here's my loved one, and she's losing the ability to use language. She's also losing memory skills. And so, more and more often, when people come into the room or come into her presence, she will not be able to put the name to the face. And pretty soon, she won't be able to tell from faces who is familiar and who is not. That's got
Hmm.
nothing to do with anything but the loss of memory skills.
Hmm.
Once those skills go, when I come into the room or come into the presence of a client who no longer has those skills, I don't feel that my client is lost to me. I know my client doesn't have certain skills that I still have, and I put mine to use. Hey,
Hmm.
Mary, how are you? You know who I am? I'm Judy. You and me, boy, we met, oh, let me think. I think it was 8 years ago.
Uh
You were
huh.
gardening in the front lawn, and I came across the street. I had just
Uh huh.
moved in across the street, and you and me, we are such good friends. We really love each other.
Uh huh. Uh
And
huh.
I start to tell her, what am I telling my clients? As they lose skills, I use more and more of mine. But I want to tell this person, I want to tell them who they are and who I am. I
Right.
want to tell them our relationship.
Right.
And I'll keep repeating that because I know she doesn't have memory skills. But then I'm going to tell her who loves her and who she loves. And
Yeah.
when people, and the message I always tell, and I tell families this, until the end, until your loved one closes his or her eyes for the last time and is gone, dies, you use your skills and
Hmm.
you sit and you tell them who you are, who I am, who loves you, who you love. And most of all, here are the stories of your life. Because I want you to know that you lived a good life. You did good things for people.
It's
And
so
I've
beautiful.
I've done it. I know. And people, like one time I remember walking into a adult family home to see my client, and this new staff member came up. She said, "Who are you going to see? Mary?" Oh, You're wasting your time. She can't talk. She can't even eat. She can't get out of bed. She won't open her eyes. She's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I'm here to see Mary, and I'm going to go sit in the room with her. And I went and sat down, and I did that. Hey, Mary, it's Judy. It's your dear friend, Judy. Oh, my goodness, you and me, we've known each other for years. Oh, we've had so much fun. Until I told her stories, and at first, she's in a fetal position. They say she hasn't moved or done anything. Everybody's waiting for her to die. And at first, no movement, nothing. And as I began to tell her our stories, the fun we had had, one eye opened just for a sec. And then pretty soon 2 eyes are open. And she's looking at me with incredulity. She's not sure what's going on. What's going on here? And after about probably 10 minutes, she was laughing, she was chuckling, she was holding my hands.
Aww.
20 minutes, half an hour, no memory skills, but she knew, by the time I left, she knew I loved her. She loved me.
She loved you.
And she had lived a good life because I
Yep.
spent half an hour telling her all of her memories about her husband and when they first got married, all the stories that I spent my time with her, memorizing her stories.
And you
Because
know
I
what?
knew the time would come when I had to use my skills when she
Right.
couldn't use hers. I never lost her.
You are so right because, and I think that if you,
Yeah.
as the audience, I'm just talking to the audience and saying I can attest to that because it took us a long time to learn that on our own. But we love my mom so much, and my daughters love her so much, and
Yeah.
especially through the Zoom, and she's lost a lot of her skills during this pandemic because there hasn't been
Yeah.
enough stimulation. And
Right.
so, my 2 daughters and my daughter had a baby this year, so the baby's on, and the baby knows my mom now from Zoom. And the
Right.
two of them don't use language, either one of them yet. But I'll say, point out where's Nanny, and she'll point to the which one is Nanny, right, in the thing.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
do what you're saying. I say, hi, Mommy, I miss you so much. I love you. It's been a week since we've seen you. And here's Joey, your other granddaughter that loves you,
Right.
and you love her.
Yeah.
Don't tell Maddie she's your favorite, and we make jokes about it. My mom will laugh when I make that joke, right? So I know she's
Exactly.
getting
Yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's opening doors. It's basically that there's just a shut door that they can't unlock.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you can just open that door, now it's not going to stay open until the next time you open it, but at least when you open that door, you let that light in, and that's what affects them. It's the same thing by using music.
Music.
Right.
Something that they
See,
relate
and-
to.
And why does music work? It's because we listen to, hear, we relate to sensory stimulation using our intuitive thinking skills. I most of my teaching, when I teach families or when I'm teaching caregivers, when I do it with private classes, I teach one class a week for 8 weeks, and I watch. You can see the person growing in understanding of their own intuitive thinking skills or their own skills, cognitive skills, and then growing in understanding and being able to recognize when their loved one is using specific skills. Because, Dan Cohen, he started out Music and Memories in that lovely video on YouTube, Alive Inside Henry. If you put in
My
those
favorite.
search terms, it'll come
My
up.
favorite.
Absolute
I
favorite.
have it on our notes. It's the best. It's the best thing ever. It's brilliant.
So wonderful. He does come to life. And this
Yeah.
is what happens when I tell people who they are. And I use my memory skills and tell them their stories. But it's because music, love, emotions, recognizing the emotions of people around us, feeling our own emotions, and beauty of whatever it is, any kind of sensory stimulation that we find pleasing, be it a color, a sound, a taste, a smell, a touch, anything. It's all available to us through our intuitive thinking skills, and we do not lose those, not at all.
Right.
And it's all available in the present. And we do not lose our experiential self, not at all.
Right.
We lose, so these are what we lose. This is what I teach with the Dawn Method. Your loved one, depending on the type of dementia, depending on what parts of the brain it affects, depending on, those factors, they are going to lose rational thinking skills, eventually altogether. They are going to lose memory skills, eventually all. which means they'll be living in the 3-second now. And eventually, they're going to lose 3 out of 5 of our types of attention skills. Depends on the type of dementia and the parts of the brain it affects, and maybe previous life experiences like TBIs, traumatic brain injury, as to what goes first or what your pattern is. That's what goes. And what we keep is all of our intuitive thinking skills and our fully experiential self, fully able to be in the present. And when you work with that, there are gifts. There is so much beauty. There is so much companionship. The Inuit say that dementia is a gift. Our society doesn't. And I think it's because we've deified memory skills and rational thinking.
And youth.
And we don't
and
understand.
About
Yeah.
humanity.
Yeah.
The use of photographs or video, is that effective if they don't recognize faces? Is that something you can use or no?
It depends. How are you going to use that? So here's 2 ways to go about it. Let's say, my husband John, he notices that I'm beginning to lose skills, and eventually I get diagnosed, and we're a couple of years through from mild cognitive impairment, and he loves me, and he really wants me to remember as much as possible, to maintain my skills as long as possible. So let's say he grabs the photo album, pictures of Michelle and the boys, the grandkids, and he starts testing me. Okay, come on, Judy. You remember when we took this picture? Do you remember? Tell me, which Christmas was it? Which year? Okay, the older boy, what's his name? Younger boy, what's his name? Mm-hmm. Where were we when we took this picture? Come on, you remember. We've gone there many times. Mm-hmm. If he does that, I will begin to associate failure and discomfort and shame and pain with those photographs. And I won't want to look at them anymore. And I've had clients who, after a family member leaves, the client will say, Judy, come here, please come here. And she'll take me into her bedroom or down the hall and show me the array of family photos. And she'll say, I don't know who these people are, but I don't like them anymore. They don't make me feel good.
As opposed to being shared the memory, if you told them what the memory was.
Right.
Then
so
it
now
becomes something, yeah.
Let's do it a different way. Let's have John sit down with me and pull out the photo album and say, oh, Judy, look at this. Here's a picture of Snow Falls. We took the boys there all the time. Boy, the first time we took them there, Jason was only 3 years old. Oh, look at him in this picture. Mm-hmm. Here he is, 3 years old. Oh, look at this one. This is us up on Clifty Mountain. Mm-hmm. And if he uses those photographs to share companionship and love with me, then what I see my clients doing, like one client, for instance, we noticed that every morning when the caregiver got there, all the pictures of the grandchildren had a scarf. Each picture was wrapped in a scarf, and there was a candy in front of the picture. She was putting the grandchildren to bed and giving them a treat. That's beautiful. Aww. I mean, what's wrong with that? How many times do little girls have tea parties for their teddies and their dolls? Another client who she was really gregarious. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Really, isn't it beautiful? Yeah. Another client would lay the pictures down so that they could go to sleep at night. Another one, she would sit at her desk and she'd get out books and she'd get her Bible out, and she had a bulletin board, and her daughters put all pictures of all her friends up on the bulletin board. And we eventually couldn't figure out, because one of my Dawn trainers, Jill, down in Colorado, this is her client, and she would, nobody could figure out what was going on, because if you came to the door, she'd say, no, I've got people over. I'm sorry, I can't visit. I have people over. I have guests. Oh, and so, wow. The family, you start to worry. Yeah. I had another client, same thing. And what we did for the client in Moscow, we put a camera in the trees outside the door to make sure there wasn't an intruder who was, taking advantage. But oh no, this woman would sit with the Bible and she'd read them stories, and then they'd talk about it and discuss it. And she was giving herself incredible social stimulation, spending time with her friends during lockdown. Mm-hmm. When there's so much. So
instead of looking at it as delusion, you look at it as imagination and just a new reality. and as
Yeah.
opposed to a negative thing. Yeah,
It's
because
a
someone goes,
self-
oh, she's really gone
Yeah,
crazy
it's like
now.
babies self-soothe. You're self-soothing.
Right.
You're figuring out a way.
Right.
When my stepfather died, this was my mother's biggest fear. He was her best friend. She said, she
Oh,
used to
yeah.
always say to me, when Georgie goes, I'm done. And I'd
Yeah.
always say, Mom, stop that. You have all of us. We love you. Stop that. Because they were 12 years
Yeah.
difference. He was 12 years older than her. And so, of course, as people do, he passed away. And this was this is the year that I moved her into my house with me, because she was going through Groundhog's Day, right? Because it was
Right.
like every 5 minutes she'd go, "Where's Georgie? We're supposed to," and I say, "Mom."
Yeah.
And it was like, what? Nobody told me. Why didn't they tell me? And it was like, oh my God.
Right. Right.
And that was the time when at the funeral, my brother was like, just stop telling her he's passed. It's, you're being cruel.
Right.
And I
It
said,
is.
but I had to, okay, you're saying it is cruel to say that he
It
is
is.
passed? Okay, but okay, here's the thing. I moved her in with me, and every time she would ask me where he is, I would say, Mommy, I'm so sorry he passed away. And I'd show her the memorial thing that I had made for him. And
Yeah.
and that maybe it's just because of what I knew of my mother, that if I did it in the way that I felt was the most compassionate, that it would stick,
yeah.
because it was so important. And it took about 2 weeks. And at
And
the
then
end
it
of the
stuck.
it stuck. And I said to her, she'd go, "Where's Georgie?" And I'd say, "Mom." And she'd go, "He died." And I said, "Yeah." And she
So
said,
what you did, that's beautiful, because what you did was you helped her use her intuitive thinking skills, which include experiential learning. And so you helped her come to grips with grief and loss through experiential learning. Um, you know, I know we really struggle with this in the United States, and you'll see people calling it therapeutic fibbing, or, people say, I cannot lie. My parents taught me not to lie, I cannot lie. But if my mother were to lose her eyesight, if every time we're together and she says, well, where are we right now? It wouldn't be kind of me to say, well, come on, Mom.
right,
I know you used to be able to use your vision skills, so come on, you know where we are. Just, I'm going to point. Now you follow my finger,
Right,
because
right.
I'm pointing at what
Right.
you need to know. And that would be not only illogical, but it would be cruel and unkind.
right,
And it's the same thing when we lose our memory skills. When we say to somebody, and I think we do this because we confuse losing memory skills with losing a memory. And when we have a healthy brain and somebody says, oh, come on, Judy, we talked about that last week. And I say, what? Really? And my friend will then say, well, come on, we went for a walk and we discussed the whole thing. And she gives me a few clues, and all of a sudden it pops into my head. I'm like, oh, right, yes, of course. I remember now. That's because I have a healthy brain. That's because I couldn't find a memory, but I do have memory skills.
right,
So this is like somebody who loses their hearing. All of a sudden,
right.
they do not have auditory skills any longer. It's not going to help to yell, and it's not going to help to demand that they listen harder.
Oh,
It
that's
won't
just a
help
great
to give them
metaphor.
clues
Yeah,
either,
yeah,
right?
right.
So losing my memory skills means you need to interact with me in a new way. And then when you think about what it means to understand reality, to know the truth, what are we talking about? We're talking about having a correct interpretation of the present. Where, let's say, you and your mom are sitting on the veranda and she looks around and says, well, where is he? All right, she's misinterpreting the reality, the present. Why? Because she lost those memory skills and she's not able to access the information about the past. Well, if I've lost my ability to use information regarding what has already occurred, what has already been said, what has been previously been done, what the situation became, once I lose my ability to interpret correctly through the loss of memory skills, how could you and I ever live in the same reality ever again? You can't. And so why do we demand that people do it? Now we say, but I can't tell a lie. well, really? So we, like with our children, when the 2-year-old says, Mommy, where do babies come from? You
Right.
tell her the whole truth,
Yeah.
nothing but the truth, and you say,
Right,
"Here,
right.
I got stuff on the computer. I
Yeah.
can show you how it
Yeah.
all
Yeah. Let
works,"
me
and you
show
need
you.
to
Yeah.
understand the whole thing,
I
right?
know,
Yeah.
100%,
We don't do
100%.
that,
No.
right?
And that
And
comes
I,
with, yeah. Go ahead, Suze.
But why
I was
not?
gonna,
We don't,
I was gonna, because they're not capable of comprehending that, and it's overload, and
right,
it makes no sense. It's
right.
a waste of time. And I
It's
think,
also
and
And it
unkind.
can be
it's
hurtful
unkind,
too.
yeah,
It
of
can
course,
be
and it
hurtful.
also could
Yeah.
hurt them in many
Yeah,
ways. But I think my choice with my mother was obviously not to be cruel because I adore
right.
her. But I knew her fear of losing my stepfather, and I knew she was strong enough to accept it because she's a strong pistol, and I knew that she could with all of us, and living with us with my daughter, and
Yeah,
a helper that we knew forever who was my daughter's nanny and part of my mom's family. It was very, very comforting. And I
yeah,
knew, I felt, I didn't know, I'm just saying, I took an educated guess that if I did this on a regular basis with kindness and love and let her have her moment of, what? And I would tell her each time, no, Mommy, we had the beautiful funeral. You were there. You were so funny. You said this because she was adorable. She said, I see you later, alligator. And she was, because they had this thing. It was just such a lovely friendship. And then little by little, it was the gift to me, because when she went, he's dead, right? I said, yeah.
wow, that's so
And she,
beautiful. But look what
yeah.
you did. You did it in love. And when you gave her the information, then you stayed with her and you grieved with her.
Each
And
time.
so she learned that you grieved with her, and she was supported. That's the difference. That's exactly the same story as the two different ways to present a picture album of
Yes.
photographs to
Yes.
somebody. And you did
Yes.
it with, you didn't, it wasn't an educated guess, it was intuition. It was wisdom on your part.
Thank you.
That's
And
following your
yeah.
intuition.
But it's
And you
also
have to
comes,
learn
it's
you have
love.
to learn those things
Yes.
because, and going back to when I watched Susie when she was first experiencing dealing with her mother, and she had no education in this, and there wasn't a lot of resources at the time,
No.
and she made many mistakes that she admits to because she didn't know. She tried to talk her into knowing things and testing her and doing
Oh, I
all
did
those
Yeah.
things.
all the bad
Like
things you
all
the
said.
the
I
bad.
did that.
yeah.
I
I
did
did
it.
every bit of it. The only way I
But
knew not to do it was because I hurt people.
Yeah.
yeah,
My
but you
poor
learn.
clients.
But it's taking those cues and learning and using
Yeah,
your intuition. Not everyone has intuition, and that's why we
right,
need to have those resources for people out there so they can learn not to do those things, because
right,
it's just as easy to do it the other way. It's easier to do it the other way and more enjoyable because you're engaging with them. You're not
Right.
telling them something, you're sharing with them. And I
But
think
right.
but we have
that's
a
the
problem
whole
in
thing
our
what we call
society.
We
Don,
do.
we have a problem. We have
Well,
a
of course.
systematic problem that is that there's a huge lack of empathy, and that's not lauded like memory is lauded, and so
Right.
and so empathy is equated with weakness sometimes, and so a lot of people don't learn empathetic skills, or if they do, they get rid of them quickly because it's
Well,
it's
because
not
they're selfish. They're
Yeah.
selfish, and it's like they're affecting my life right
You
now.
know,
Their
yeah.
disability, quote unquote, is affecting my life,
Well,
and
yeah.
as opposed to what we always say, lean in,
Lean in.
into
Right.
their
It's
world.
like the
Yeah.
typical narcissist who I used to be married to, and I'll say this, because I learned that I didn't know that they actually don't have empathy, and they can't really, a true narcissist doesn't have it, and
Exactly. Yep.
my ex used to say if I would be upset at something horrible that he did, and he'd go, "Oh my God, how do you think what you just said makes me feel?"
That's right. That's a beautiful example. Yep. But look at our society. If you prize rational thinking,
Uh-huh.
and think about how we talk about our intuitive thinking skills. We don't call them intuitive thinking skills. We call it intuition. And we say, well, it's kind of all wrapped up with emotion, and we know emotion is bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there's this whole this we denigrate what is the core of our humanity. Your intuitive thinking skills, your intuitive thinking skills gather information. You gather everything via your senses, unfiltered. Everything you encounter through what you see, hear, smell, taste, or touch is gathered and not filtered. It's whole. Your intuitive thinking skills are your primary thinking skills. And then we have a bicameral brain, and you can't sort that out by saying, well, we do our intuitive thinking on one side and rational thinking on the other. It's not like that. Where is the wrong question. How is the correct question.
Yeah.
It's unfiltered information about how everybody around us feels.
When people who have dementia, as it progresses, their filters go away, their social filters.
Right.
And so you see the true person of who they are. And like children, if they think that person has a big butt, they're going to say, wow, what a big butt.
And think about what else happens when we lose our memory skills. We lose all the wounds, all of the hurts and pains of life. All of the things that have scarred us, all of the things that have shaped us away from that beautiful, full, complete person we were born as. And so I've seen clients, when I get to just wrap, the dawn blanket around a person and take care of them right through death. I've seen relationships healed. I've seen, like couples that were completely broken fall in love again.
Oh.
There is so much beauty when we understand the full scale of our human cognitive skills and stop being prejudiced and just wanting to admire just rational thinking, just attention skills, just memory skills. No. All the good stuff is in the experiential self with the intuitive thinking skills in the present. And, when you think about it, where do you have a good time with somebody? It's when you're together in the present. When you think about the past and you have a happy memory of something, oh, that was so much fun. My best memory with that person is, well, it's a few moments. It wasn't, a huge long period of time. It's moments out of an entire lifetime of experience.
And I think that melancholy it can be painful too. It's like sometimes, it's not, I find it, it's a double-edged sword, memories, because they can even if they're good, it can be painful because you don't have it anymore. Like I don't mourn the loss of my daughter's babyhood, whereas I know like their dad, I have two different fathers, but the good dad, he does he does mourn over that. To me, that's like not appreciating what you have now with them and what they bring into your life now. And they bring different gifts each stage of their life, which is so fun.
Do you feel that does one way more important than the other, which is sharing memories or just being in the moment and present? Or is it a combination? Is one that you feel gets more of a reaction, or is there any way to know that?
That's a good question, Dawn.
It's a great question. And, I think we, like, as family members, we just can't know. You can't know what to expect. So I always say go prepared. And loving somebody who's experiencing dementia is being a detective. You become a detective of those few songs of their lifetime that move their hearts, that bring them to tears, that make them start clapping and singing out loud. You're looking for that music, and you put it on an MP3 player, and you get some nice soft headphones like those ones from Apple, and now you've got that music that your loved one is moved by. And then there are certain colors, there are certain fabrics, there's certain things that they really love. You become the beauty detective.
Food.
People,
sometimes some dessert or something that they love.
On Zoom, we say to my mom, "Oh, Mom," because we know something that we knew she liked, like this tequila chicken, right? So we'd say from this restaurant, we go, "Mom, so tomorrow we're going to bring you the tequila chicken. How does that sound? And then we're going to go get you a cappuccino. The kind that you liked." We're going to get that. And then we're going to go to C's Candy and get Bordeaux's, like all of them. We're going to eat like 20 of them together. And she'll laugh, right? So things that she remembers, things that were like viscerally. And my mother was a singer. And so I've made, compilations of all her songs, and we sing them at nauseum. We sing them at nauseum,
and play her old recordings, and
play them.
But I find that it's different every time. Meaning, what turned them on last time, there's nothing, and what you never know, and that's being that detective, like you said. It's literally
a good way to frame it.
It's a detective, literally moment to moment.
I so deeply believe in aging at home, because if the person is at home, you have all kinds of things at your disposal.
Yeah.
But if somebody's in a care facility, one of the cruelest things about care facilities is that they are so impersonal. They are, in America, we began them like as if they were hospitals and hospital rooms. There's movement now to try to bring more sensory stimulation in, but it is so difficult to bring it with you. Whereas if you can just step outside, feel the breeze on your face, the smell of mowed grass, or the sound of a bird in a nearby tree. If you have any access at all to the natural world, there's beauty all around in the present, and that's where your loved one is living. So if they are living in a care facility, try to bring it with you. One of the things that I think is so available and so critical is to make use of technology. And I'm talking about just YouTube. Like, buy a gigantic television. It doesn't even have to be a smart TV. Put a Roku stick on it, or an Amazon Fire Stick. Get YouTube on it and search Babbling Brook. Search Nightingale. There's a young man from Bulgaria, I think, calls himself the Silent Watcher, and he goes around the world videoing beauty, natural beauty. I had one woman who had lived all of her life on the Delaware River. She raised her children in a house where the back lawn went down to the water. The sound of the river filled that home, winter and summer, day and night. You could hear the river. And then the kids had all moved to Idaho. She eventually comes because she's experiencing dementia. She had to move into a care facility, and there she is, in that mostly beige, white, gray room in those gray halls. And there's, it's like been decorated like a hotel. Well, she never went to hotels. She didn't like hotels.
No,
And she always wanted to leave. Why did she want to leave? She wanted to leave because it didn't feel like home. So what did we do? You put a TV in the room, and you put a YouTube video on that's 8 hours long, and it's the sound of the river running. She walks into the room, she sits down, she says, "Oh, home, finally, home." Right?
Something she relates to,
Sensory stimulation, anything you can think of that is beautiful for them. And even on
How
Zoom,
about a shopping mall?
Yes, that works. I used to always take people to the mall.
No, I was gonna say a YouTube of the mall. A YouTube of the mall. They can go shopping.
Yeah, but if you can just go sit in a mall, and there's people walking by, you can talk about what people are wearing. You can get the smells. You can get a protein shake. You can get a coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if you're fortunate enough to, go ahead, Suze.
Oh no, I have another selfish question, okay? Because this is, and I as I think I'm getting, I think I'm pretty attuned to this world now, but I still get thrown when my mother will come out with just something that just bumps me, and I take it personally. Like she won't have spoken at all, and she'll just go, "Shut up," out of nowhere. And I don't know, and I had to take it back and go, is she saying shut up to me as I'm talking, or is she saying shut up to something that's annoying her in the other room? I don't know. And so can you speak to that?
Think about what it would feel like to be losing skills the way people do with dementia. You're losing your language skills. You're losing your attention skills. You lose the ability to direct your attention, redirect your attention, or maintain your attention. And when we lose those skills, that means you're just sitting there minding your own business, maybe thinking happy thoughts, but all of a sudden there's a movement or a flash of light or a sound, You have no ability to stop yourself. Your attention's grabbed. It grabs you. And then something else happens and it grabs you again. It's really uncomfortable. And think about sitting someplace in the 3 second now, and you look up and you look around and you think, who are these people? Because you don't have any knowledge of the past. Have they been speaking? I don't know, because I can't recall anything past 3 seconds ago. Did this person I'm sitting with, I think this is my daughter. I know she loves me, but did she just say something and I forgot to answer? What did she say? You think about the emotional unease that is caused by losing these skills. And so and that's not even taking into account delusions or hallucinations, and I've especially if it's FTD or there are dementias where, and it always seems to be something out of the person's past, something that and it becomes a topic they cannot avoid. They can't turn their attention away from it. I think a lot of these hallucinations and delusions are actually complicated by these changes to our attention skills. The worst delusion I ever had to work with or encountered was this poor woman. She had grown up somewhere in the Dakotas, far from town. She had given birth, I think, 5 times, and alone, found herself alone. She had to deliver at home alone. She lost 2 children. And so years later, and she's outlived her husband, and she began to, as her dementia progressed, she began to have this delusion that she was imminently giving birth. And so she'd be sound asleep, dozed off, or she'd be daydreaming or something, and then she'd wake up and say, oh my goodness, the baby's coming, and she'd start trying to tear her clothes off. Poor woman, but she was absolutely beside herself because she didn't want the baby to die.
Oh God, it's tragic.
They called me in. I know, and she was absolutely exhausted. I've never seen anybody more exhausted because this would hit her every few minutes.
Oh,
so
God.
I sat down beside her, and she's sitting in her rocking chair in the dining room, and then all of a sudden she comes to life. She's like, "Oh, the baby! I'm giving birth! And instead of saying to her, "No, you're not. Stop it. Don't be silly. It's a delusion." Instead of correcting her and demanding that she use cognitive skills she didn't have, I agreed with her, and I just said, "Oh my goodness! Oh no!" Right? I'm reflecting her love and concern. Oh my goodness! Put your hand on your belly. And she put her hand on her belly, and she'd realize that her belly was flat. And I'd say, "Feel your belly," and she'd look a little confused, and she'd look at me, and she'd say, she wouldn't say anything. I'd say, "Feel your belly. There's no baby. There's no baby. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay." Now, why did that work? And then she'd doze off, immediately fall asleep. She's exhausted. Why did that work? It worked because I gave her sensory stimulation in the present, but it also worked because I gave her love. I met her. I let her tell me her emotion, and I reflected it. I felt it too.
You allowed her to come to the realization that
Right.
there wasn't, as opposed to you telling her that there wasn't.
Right, because I didn't expect her to use rational thinking skills. I expected her to use intuitive thinking skills, and that is sensory stimulation.
Yeah.
It's sensory.
There's so many things. I mean, we have not even scratched the surface, I think, of the Dawn method. I think we've talked about a lot of the elements of it, but not as a whole. And I think we might have to do that in another, like a whole nother show.
Yeah, I know this. We could talk forever. You're like you are the gem.
Yeah.
You are the gem that I found through my mother's Alzheimer's. You're amazing. You are really a gift to everybody. Honestly, we're going to put all of Judy's information up on our podcast notes. She's got all kinds of programs and
resources and books. You've written two books that we haven't talked about.
She's my new BFF. She doesn't know it yet, but she is.
I think we're kindred spirits because you're doing the same thing. Both of us are motivated by wanting to share this with more people so that they can experience the same, to be able to help people live a good final chapter.
Yeah. Thank you guys for subscribing, sharing, listening, and we hope that you got a lot out of this. And Dawn, thank you, and
Yes.
Judy, thank you
Susan.
again.
And as we always say,
So welcome.
love is powerful, love is contagious, and love conquers all. And we will see you next time. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Oh,
Bye,
you're
everybody.
welcome. Thank you for inviting me.